Jermaine Dupri says hip hop is hurting and needs reviving.
Oh man, this dude was out here with an interview with
So Def is out here in the news, ain't they?
Man, they out here.
Bow Wow, you got Jermaine Dupri.
So he says, I feel like hip hop is definitely hurting and needs reviving. I have to go ahead and say this. For the last 20 years, Atlanta always had at least 5 or 6 of the top rappers at one time. Right now, Atlanta's dropped down to 2 top artists, Lil Baby and Future. He said there's a lot of talent in the city still. I don't want anybody to screw what I'm saying, but the top tier...
Screw what I'm saying? We were just having this...
That's what he said.
Is that what it says? Okay.
Terry, is that what that say?
That's what it said.
That's what...
right,
why you say it like you wanted me to be wrong?
If we're using the red pen, it's skew.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, well, since we grading papers, you're right, Long.
It can be transcribed wrong. You never know. That might be what he said, and that's not what was written.
People do mess up.
Is this like a tweet or something?
No, this is like a quote.
Quotations.
Yeah, this is a quote.
Man. They could have messed it up. Man.
But he's saying, but the top tier is where you have Ludacris, Jeezy, 2 Chainz, Migos, Future, Lil Baby. I mean, at one point, all of this was Atlanta. This is where all the top tier rap artists came from. He said, I'm not talking.
But those aren't the same. That's not the same argument. You can't say hip hop is hurting
Atlanta
and then say that hip. Come on, man. This kind of goes back to the conversation we had about the East Coast being upset that they don't have the torch right now.
Is the quote hip hop is hurting or that Atlanta hip hop is hurting?
Hip hop
is hurting and needs reviving is what it says.
So basically, so what he's saying is, since Atlanta isn't how it's quote unquote been, hip hop is hurting.
Nah, that's cap.
That's cap, man. That's 100% cap. That's extra bias because just because the pulse isn't what you think it is for Atlanta, you're just gonna jump out and say hip hop is hurting. You know what that is? What's that?
Atlanta capitalism.
Tough.
He's trying to have a chokehold on it.
And it's also Long, with the least amount of work.
Yeah, well, I mean,
they mad that Memphis is getting their shine right now. I guess I don't know.
That's a pretty big statement, man. Just because Atlanta doesn't have all the top rappers currently, that it's getting stale, quote unquote.
Nah, that's not.
Yeah,
that's not how that works.
That's kind of lame, actually.
I'm not talking about artists that just make records, but #1 songs, artists that people feel like define the game. Rap to me become a little stale, but I never stopped making rap records. He said, as a producer, people continue to want me to produce R&B records. And he mentioned that him and Currency got a project.
He kind of all over the place. Currency ain't from Atlanta.
From New Orleans, right?
Nolans.
I just think this, once again,
this is cap.
You can get old, and I'm not saying, yeah, I'm calling him old.
It's cap.
And the thing is, like, just because you don't feel like you have your thumb on the pulse of the culture, then there must be something wrong with it. It's like there's just people out there you don't know about, you're not aware of. It's just like that when people talking about how R&B is dead. It's like, no, you just don't pay attention to what's going on, and because
it's still out there.
It's not something that you listen to every day, and you still listening to R&B from the 90s, and you still feel like, man, remember Faith and Jodeci and New Edition, like. I love all those artists, but there's still people out here who are doing it, and just because it's not right in your face right now, it doesn't mean it's the same. It's the same thing.
I'm a JD fan. First of all,
I have no problem.
Yeah, I'm a fan of JD.
Yeah, I have no problem with JD.
But this has nothing to do with that.
But
no, what I'm saying,
it has to do with the fact that, like, just because he talked about Ludacris and Future, like he talked about 25 in the people. He talked about 25 years of music.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So. You just got to understand that, like, the people who are out here doing it now, it's just because it's not in your face and it's not what you've been dancing to when you go out. It's because you old.
We've also talked about
still play the music that you like, and it's from another era.
Well, he said there's a lot of talent in the city.
Geographically, the sound has evolved to where there's no borders on who's prevalent, essentially. So, of course, Atlanta is always going to be a hub. No matter what's going on, you can't take that away from the city, essentially. But just because they're not at the top of the game like you want them to be, does not mean that hip hop or rap is hurting in any way.
And the reason I said I fool with JD because I do think he's a legend and he's underrated. But you also got to be able to call a spade a spade. And this is really this is actually like arrogant that you think the pulse is the pulse in your city is just that. powerful to just put it all over hip hop. That ain't it, bro.
Unless it's something I'm missing. Unless it's a really bad misquote.
Could be that.
You know?
Could be taken out of context.
So
that
we might
happens
have to
a
put
lot.
an asterisk on this conversation.
Yeah, maybe.
Because
if he's talking about Atlanta hip hop, then yeah, okay, maybe it makes sense. But if he's talking about hip hop in general, then no.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. And sometimes there's stuff that comes out and we say things or read something, and then I was misquoted or something comes out to clarify.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, he loved Atlanta. Now he always repped Atlanta as he should. But come on, man. Over the whole culture? Nah.
You know, and Jeezy put out music this year. You know what I'm saying? Or not?
Yeah.
In you know,
or last year.
Last year. You know, 2022 rather.
Yeah.
You know,
the end of the year.
Where's Jid from?
He's from Atlanta.
He's from Atlanta.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. So just because Jermaine Dupri is not up on Jid, you know, that's a cultural blind spot he might have.
Exactly.
He said not
right
artists,
up under your nose.
He said artists, not just artists that just make records, but #1 songs. So to point about Jid, it's like Jid had a dope album.
Yeah, that
Did
is
he have
absolutely
#1 records though.
Yeah, that's
the way
absolutely on some kind of elitist type stuff.
Right.
You want your city to have the #1 at all times.
It doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter at all. Ludacris is from Chicago at the end of the day.
There we go.
Well, that's true. That is true. Everybody else he mentioned was
Brad's from Chicago as well.
Sure is. Oh, so Def really out here.
Bauer Woward's from Ohio.